At the end of the day, like money alone is not going to be something that's going to motivate people to get reviews. For us, like the big picture thing, and it's a bit abstract, but it's just true. And I know you've seen it. Like every week, we're talking about Google reviews. Every week, we're highlighting the team members who got amazing Google reviews.
Sharp strategies, sweet success.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. I'm your host, Tiffany Swedensky. And today we have on the podcast David Vicknair of Scott Vicknair Injury Lawyers. I started working with David back, I think, late 2023, I think is what it was, and worked with him as a fractional CMO for Scott Vicknair. And it was just great from start to finish. And we built a lot of marketing things together that I still learn from, use, and what I do today for my other clients. And it's just a real pleasure to have David here on the podcast. So, David, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Tiffany. I think it was beginning of 2023. I may be wrong about that. I'll have to go check my dates. But I thought the first time I saw you present was at the Great Legal Marketing Conference in the end of 2022. But in any event, it's wonderful to be with you. Am I the first person to come back two times? Because this is my second appearance on your podcast. So I'm trying to
Actually, I
grab
think
the mantle for myself, Tiff.
actually I think Cassidy beat you to that a little while back. Cassidy was
Mm.
my first
Well, I'm
repeat
in good
guest.
company
Yeah.
of Cassidy Lewis's who beat me to
Yeah.
it. So thanks for having me back.
No, pleasure having you on. So I guess first question, just what's been going on at Scott McNair, I guess, since I left, or what you want to recently update everyone on?
You know, a lot of the continuation and expanding a lot of the things that you helped us build out and the foundations that we kind of laid together for a lot of the things within our marketing program. We've been really focused at the beginning of this year on being very intentional about how to put different touch points and things into our client journey experience so that we can do some of the things you just mentioned. Cassidy is a great example of somebody who's really intentional that Miles has learned a bunch from on how do we add pieces to the touch points that elevate and grow the client experience along their client journey with the organization. And so we've really been spending a lot of time and energy on something which other people would see otherwise a low budget item on, which is a low budget item in the grand scheme of the marketing thing, but bigger picture, I think, is an example of how to further expand our customer first, hospitality first mindset across the organization. And for me, it's always like, how do I reverse each piece of the things that we're doing here and do the opposite of what everybody else is doing? So I think about it like if it's a normal thing that a law firm is doing, that I want to do it the opposite way. And I want to think about myself as a client and what would be the friction pieces and the points that frustrate me. And I want to eliminate those. And so we spent a lot of time at the beginning of this year laying out more of the things that we're already doing and growing some of that now that we have a more capacity in our marketing team and more capacity in our firm as a whole to really execute some of the big picture, crazy, wild ideas that I come up with when and I'm going to bed at night.
There's so much crossover in marketing. So, referral marketing, community marketing, crossover, the lines are kind of blended. And with list nurturing, which, a lot of the stuff you talked about is particularly like catering to the client experience, you're doing it for the outcome of more referrals, not necessarily like how many cases did the client advisory board dinner get us, which is something else that you guys do. So, I mean, I talk about like what you guys are doing to build up the list marketing wise.
Yeah, so I want to go back just one step there, Tiff, because I do think one thing maybe as lawyers that we don't think enough about, and I probably didn't think enough about before a year or two ago, is like, why are we doing some of this stuff? Like, I'm about to jump into the tactics of how we build our list and prioritize our list. But for me, it's like I don't want to be the biggest firm. I don't need to be the biggest firm. I want to be the best. I want to be the place that it feels like not only will the lawyer and legal teams give you the best quality representation possible, and you're going to have excellent litigators, myself included. I'm still involved in some of the cases. We have excellent litigators and great lawyers at the firm and have top flight legal teams, but Also, you're going to have like a hospitality experience that you never expected from a law firm. And so for me, that's one of my big whys is to have like an organization that's customer obsessed, not competitor obsessed. And think lawyers fall very prone to that, is like being obsessed with their competitors instead of being obsessed with their customers. And that's really something I've learned from just reading about and studying Jeff Bezos. But tactic wise on the list, that's why we do a lot of this hospitality thing. The referrals are just a benefit of it. And because the hospitality is definitely a marketing aspect for any firm, because like if you treat the clients who trust you well, you're going to have great word of mouth and great reputation and great referral business if you just treasure and try to do your best to treat the people who have already trusted you well. Giveaways. So jumping into the tactics that you asked, giveaways have been a big thing for us since we started those last year. I am amazed at the amount of people who sign up for some of these giveaways. And it's amazing because it's a low cost item. My rule of thumb is kind of like, I think people will give you all their information and opt into your marketing if the giveaway is 150 or $200 or more. So, we try to make sure we're giving something away, whether it's sport tickets or a turtle box or a Mardi Gras package. We just did that every 1 or 2 months. And that will get us somewhere between 180 to 250 new addresses and birthdays in our list. It is the best deal in marketing world as far as I'm concerned because like I was joking with Brian Glass the other day. I was just on his podcast about to come out. We're talking about you, so you should listen, but in a good way. We're talking about being like a little construction worker building my freaking list because the list is everything in this space to me. And the giveaways are a great way to just like accumulate names, have a little bit of fun, and then you also can have something that your team really enjoys when they select the winner out of a hat and the person gets to come in and they're all excited, they won something. Like it's just a great thing overall, and it doesn't cost that much money. It's not a ton of resources to like roll that out and get people to register and sign up. And so to me, you can do six, seven, eight, nine of those a year and collect 1,000 or 1,200 names. It's a no-brainer for the amount of money and time it costs you. We weren't really doing it before last year, and I feel like an idiot that we weren't. If you want me to be honest. So that's one. And then, a lot of our community events are great ways to build our list. They're great ways to not only build the list, but I think there's a different way you can look at community events. Like you're not only building your list and getting that person to get newsletters and holiday cards and birthday cards and all those things from you. If they've gotten, for us, we do Project Backpack. If they've gotten a backpack from us, we do an Uber giveaway on New Year's Eve. If they've gotten an Uber credit. We do high season ABCs where we give a cruise away to a local educator. If they've been involved in one of those community initiative programs or our pet adoption event that we do in the fall, those are like events that they have a connection to you that is beyond just like they opted into a giveaway. So they're already somewhat associated with the brand or your organization because they've been a part of a community event that you were doing something good in the community. So I find those to be like even higher value list presence type of people for you to be constantly in front of, marketing to, and speaking to because they already had an affinity for your brand before they even opted into your list.
So I've seen a lot of the recent like TV ads that you guys have done, and some I've seen before. They just pop up on Instagram for me as I'm scrolling through. What's your recording schedule like? Like, how often are you guys making new content for that?
For TV? For TV,
Yeah.
it's probably like we're going to record 2 commercials next week. So now we're in a pretty steady rhythm where we only have to record every couple of months, every 2 to 3 months, maybe once. And it just depends on what we're recording for. We have to plan it really far ahead because we bake in the 2 to 4 weeks it takes for the bar to approve the spot once we finish editing, and the editing time period, depending upon the complexity of the shoot, the timeline and how we schedule it depends on how much editing it's going to need and how much back and forth. And so, depending upon how complex the shoot is, that kind of lays into it. But I would say, Tiff, when we started 2.5 years ago, the shooting schedule was like a lot more laborious because we were always coming out with like new commercials, and it was important to me to make the content a bit newer to be able to tell the story and tell the theme and fit a lot of things that we're doing on TV. But now that we have almost 2.5 years of commercials in the bank, you can rerun certain spots that didn't run for that long that people have forgotten about 2 years ago. You can patch those in. So it's not as hectic as it was back then. Really now it's much more, I think, strategic than like we have to rush to get good content out. Now we can be more strategic on the specific content, when we want to drop it, how we want to lay it in, what programming we want it to be in on TV than we were when we first started.
You specifically do a lot when it comes to content because I see you a lot in Instagram videos, and then you have the podcast, and then the commercials, and all the other stuff I'm forgetting to mention. Like, how do you keep up with that schedule? Like, honestly, myself and other fractional CMOs, like a lot of the issues we have is getting content recorded. So, how do you keep up?
As you know, I'm lucky because I have an amazing marketing team. And that's rule number one, is spend the money to hire really good people to run the marketing program. As lawyers, I think we think that this stuff takes less time to do well than it actually does. And you were running our marketing department up until 4 months ago, when we went and we decided we needed a full-time person. That we've had you running it for 2.5 years, who has an amazing bevy of experience and a lot of knowledge of every intricacy of a lot of the things that we were doing digitally. And you were keyed into some of the things on the brand side too that we were doing and supporting that, as far as like how does that translate over into the digital footprint, how do we run some of this in social media, how do we do those types of things right. And then obviously I could go on and on about Miles and Mariana. We have an amazing marketing coordinator in Miles. He's reliable, he's highly intelligent, he's highly motivated, he has grown exponentially since first. He's coming up on 2 years this August. He's been an amazing team member, a great culture fit. Mariana, who is our marketing assistant to Miles, does all of our video editing and graphic design and social media posting, is just a truly special person. She's amazing. She's been with us for over 2 years. So that's where it starts. And then now we obviously had you, who was an incredible piece of our marketing team. Now we have somebody full-time as marketing director, and Whitney Cadwell, who is amazing. And so when you have an amazing team, they really can allow you to be better. And I think one of the tricks we didn't know, you were with me when you and I decided to hire Miles. We got lucky in hiring Miles, and now I tell people who are thinking about hiring, like, that marketing coordinator role, who's like not a marketing director level experience. They really have a long way to go to get that much experience to be able to be a marketing director, but are in like a coordinator position and not like an assistant. You know what I mean? That Miles had a video and photography background before we hired him from one of the local news stations. And we didn't know that at the time, or you may have known it, but Net told me that. But I wasn't thinking like this was a huge deal. But having somebody in-house who can video well, can record well, who really knows how to frame the video and do what they're doing, it just makes your life so much easier. Every Tuesday afternoon, Miles and I were just talking about this morning, whether we need to have like me and him and Whitney to sit down and talk about like, what are we doing for video strategy moving forward? Should we rethink our big picture strategy? But like every Tuesday afternoon, we sit down, we have a scheduled meeting at 1:30. He sets up in my office and we shoot 3 videos. And he tells me what they are. He prompts me. There's one long form, there's two short form. One's usually funny or a giveaway, one's potentially a topic, depending on what's going on. And it takes 15 or 18 minutes. I don't do a script, I just go. So that is a very low time commitment. He schedules our podcast, Miles sets it up. So like when we're getting ready to shoot, like I just walk in and go. When we are doing like a social media video, we have a segment we just started called Small Biz Big Wins, where we highlight a local company. Like Miles has coordinated it. He puts it on my calendar. He reminds me of it. I show up with him. I'm going to a influencer video tonight. It's a ghost tour at 5 p.m. to go do a ghost tour in the French Quarter. That's going to be like a meet collaboration with a local social media influencer and Scott Vicknair and Jewelers. Never met her, not sure who she is. I just know I have to be in the car with Miles at 4:40. So that's what I would say is like I think I'm okay about protecting my time. I'm getting better every year. I used to be horrible at it. But number one, go pay good people and hire good team members if you really want to do marketing at a high level, because they will help you execute it and respect your time.
Yeah, that's one of the big things I learned working with you and at Scott Vicknair is like how a marketing team could function. Because I feel like so many firms are with like they have a marketing coordinator or somebody in that seat, and they don't have a sense of how long things should take. So they don't know, like they don't know, basically how to manage that person. And so when you have like the context of like this is how quickly or this is what it takes to like bring something from X, to start to finish, it really opens your eyes to how a lot of law firms function.
Yeah, and I hate to say, like, we're not perfect. Like, we have problems just like everybody else, right? I never like to portray we're perfect. And you know too, Tiffany, that before we got to Miles and before we got to Mariana, like, there were a lot of nice people who were just not the right people for the right seat of the organization, and we had to move on from. And that's not enjoyable, but like, you do have to be honest sometimes and make decisions that aren't comfortable, that like, this may not be the right person for this role. Lovely people, love them to death, but they weren't the right people. And I think, me and you've had a lot of conversations around that context before, Tiffany, that I think sometimes one of the things that we've run into, and I think other law firms probably struggle with too in the marketing sphere, is like identifying talent and people who could be a team member in your marketing department who understand the role of like task management, execution of tasks, and not like you're sitting around drawing paintings all day. I think some challenges are like some marketers or people who are in the marketing sphere and who will apply for these jobs, or whatever side the brain people you want to call it. I don't know if it's left, right, whatever. I don't get all that. But like, they're creatives at heart and they think the job is like coming up with creative, and all that is not the job of a marketer in a law firm. Like, creative is a small, small piece of it. But if you have somebody who can't really task manage, execute, and knock to do items off a list, they're not the right person for that seat.
I see a lot of law firms these days hiring like for technical skills as well. And, it's one of the things where like technical skills help, but also like you really need somebody who can work as a team, who
Yeah.
can produce things reliably, and just basically understand what it means that we did it once. Now we have to do it a little bit better next time. And, that's hard to find because a lot of people are just exactly how you described. They want to be lead strategy with, not that much experience, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a recipe for an ineffective marketing team. That's the best way to explain it. Is like, Tiffany, because you're very much like a task oriented and execution oriented type of professional, is like, to do marketing well and execute it and it be effective, is you have to act and you have to do. And some of it is going to suck and some of it's going to be wrong. But like, it just iterates, it gets better, you improve, you make a mistake, you learn a lesson from it, you move on, you do it better the next time. And so, like, what I have learned now in 3 years of doing this, with actually having a marketing team and building a marketing program that gets bigger every year, is like, it's no different than any other division of the firm or department in the firm. If it wasn't law, it would be any company or any industry. It's like, your departments, your teams, they have to execute, they have to get crap done. And so, your marketing department can't be a theory society that talks about like concepts and giggling and all this other stuff. Like, there are to-do items and action items that have to happen for marketing to be executed well for the law firm, and you need to find people who can get it done. We have fun too. Like, a lot of this is fun. I mean, a lot of it is creative and you come up with different ideas, but like, you have to execute the ideas.
Yeah. So I talk to a lot of attorneys who, when we're talking about content, one of the first things that often is mentioned, particularly when they're a firm like yourself, who's done a lot of marketing. It's been like 2 or 3 years though since they've made anything new. And so I hear a lot like, oh, we got a lot of content. We got enough. Let's just reuse what we have. Do you think you'll ever get to that point where you're personally not recording as much, or and lean back on your library, or how do you feel about that?
No, I just it doesn't feel overwhelming to me to do the content production schedule we have right now. And my biggest fear in having that mindset of it, Tiff, is the world is ever changing and things are different, things are evolving. And so I think in some senses, right, like, big picture, like a discussion I mentioned earlier that I had with Miles this morning, is like, me and you, Whitney, probably need to have a meeting and discuss like video strategy, right? Like, we're kind of in this rhythm where we've been in for a year of the types of video we shoot every Tuesday and the concepts and where we are. Like, is this really working? What can we tweak? What is our high level strategy? How can we shift and change this and evolve it? But I don't ever see us like slowing down on the creation of content, because I think you can never have enough. I mean, there's a reason Coca-Cola or whoever it is never stops creating new content, is because content, whether it's on social media, which now we know is being pulled into like AI algorithms on Google, like social media content, YouTube content specifically, can always get better and more refined. And so, like, that's very abstract. So let's take a concrete example. Let's say we filmed a YouTube video like a year ago on a topic, and we feel like we're a lot better at how we do things on YouTube now. Like, maybe we would use similar content as the concept in there, but like, you've gotten better at how you shoot it, at how you edit it, at how you put meta tags or whatever crap you call it when you put it up on YouTube. Like, your team has gotten better at doing it. So when you post it again, it becomes in a different context, somewhat evergreen and probably performs better. No different than, what we're doing in LinkedIn right now. I write 2 LinkedIn articles a week, but every now and then we're yanking an article that I wrote last year and changing it up, and the content is similar to a previous post, but it's intentionally different, and we're better at LinkedIn now. So the answer is no. I don't think anybody should ever just like republish old things as a content strategy. That being said, like I said earlier, there's certainly TV commercials and things that have been really popular that we've already done that we kind of phased out that could like make a reappearance, right? But I think that's an intentional spot piece and a part of an overall like content strategy, not the overarching strategy of a content strategy.
So this is kind of a complex question, but what do you see your role as, like within the marketing department? Like, what role do you occupy?
It's kind of changing, right? Like, it's becoming diminished more and more every day. When you were running the department and we had you in place of fractional, at the beginning, it was like a while, like that period was like, oh, amazing, we have Tiffany. So I have somebody to actually run the marketing department. It's not me talking to a singular marketing coordinator. And so it was shifting me out of like that person reporting to me at the beginning. And then as we grew the marketing department, as you ran it, you had more autonomy. But then we didn't have you full time. And so it was like I was still more involved. But now that we have a full-time director who's amazing and Whitney, my time is less and less in the department, which is intentional and good because my role really now is like higher level concepts and strategy and check-ins on projects and reminders. So I have a weekly meeting with Whitney now, and it's very much like, here's the things on my mind, the one or two things I'm thinking about. Here's the projects I'm curious about. Now, what do you have for me? And that's kind of like my role now. And I pop into the Slack channel with our marketing team from day to day. They'll tag me and ask me my input here and there. So really my role is like, here's what I'm thinking about. Here's a new idea I have. Here's what I'd like to do. And when there's something that they want to bring to my attention to get my input and approval on, it's being present and doing that. And so that's kind of my day-to-day task role, which is not a huge time commitment anymore now that we have such a dedicated and experienced and good team. And then on the creative side, I'm heavily involved in coming up with a creative that goes out on TV. That's probably my primary role is managing that, overseeing that, ensuring that schedule is going, and then I like it. And when it hits 50, 100, 200,000 people, that it's something that aligns with our brand message and what I want our brand message to be. So that's probably the primary thing now.
So, of anyone I've worked with, your firm is the most successful at getting reviews and building up this amazing review portfolio. Because you went just from like a few hundred, I think, when I started working with you to like, I think over 2,000 at this point, probably. How do you keep your team motivated to continually get reviews for the practice? Like, how does that work?
Well, I think the biggest trap some lawyers fall into is they're like, I want to financially incentivize and bonus team members for each review, which is all good and well, and we do that too. That's fine. But like at the end of the day, like money alone is not going to be something that's going to motivate people to get reviews. For us, like the big picture thing, and it's a bit abstract, but it's just true. And I know you've seen it. Like every week, we're talking about Google reviews. Every week, we're highlighting the team members who got amazing Google reviews. We're talking about them when we have slow periods. We talk about that in Slack and in messaging. We highlight amazing reviews. We highlight people who are getting amazing reviews. And it's just become a piece of our DNA. There's no other way to explain it other than that. And it's no different than like in marketing, you talk about list building and being top of mind with the people in your list, right? Well, if you don't make Google reviews and hospitality top of mind for your team, then they're just not going to do it. And so I can't explain it. I think between all we have 6 or 7 GBPs, 5 or 6 remote offices now. We just are putting two new remote offices online in the next 2 days here. And I think between all those offices, we probably in the injury group have around 2,600 or 2,700 reviews now. And all I can attribute it to is a simple thing of atomic habits and consistency, is like many, many years of consistently executing, incentivizing, and making it a part of our ethos and our DNA that positive reviews and a positive hospitality and client experience is who we are as an organization and the most important thing about what we're doing for each of our clients.
And one thing I observed working with you is you really put a lot of effort into the culture at your firm, like a lot more than I normally see. Like, how do you do that? And how do you feel like it influences the marketing?
It's a lot of work. My joke about culture is 4 years ago, I used to think it was like, let's go have a happy hour together, which we do that, but that's not really culture. It is number one, just going to take a lot of time. There's so many things that we do. I mean, you've seen them, for example, in our Slack messaging. We have an SV Wins channel, and for 2 years now, we have been like highlighting the small little things that people are successful at so that the whole organization sees them. That every week there's at least two messages in that channel where somebody, whoever it is, highlighted, not just like they settled the $3 million case, like I just saw one when I got back from a board meeting a minute ago here that an attorney and case manager settled one of the smallest and older claims we just couldn't close. They just got it done. There was a shout out for them. There was something yesterday about somebody doing something amazing. And so a piece of it is like constantly giving positive reinforcement and recognition to the people who are doing the small little things that make your organization special on a day-to-day basis, number one. Number two is creating a place where people feel safe to be creative. And that means that your supervisors and your leadership team has to have very intentional and skilled soft skills because, every now and then we're going to all have a minute where we want to kill somebody, we want to yell, we want to like lose our shit, right? But you don't get to do that if you want to have an amazing culture because a great book that talks about this concept I read 4 years ago was Leaders Eat Last. And it talks about our need to feel safe to be our most creative selves. So if your team feels safe, you will get the most creativity and special execution and dedication out of them. And if they know that the organization, because they all chit chat and talk behind your back, if they know that they're not going to get in trouble if they make a mistake, that if they come forward and tell you about the mistake, that the organization prioritizes that because you can use it as a learning experience and a lesson for everybody to be trained because your organization prioritizes training and skill development. Number one, they're going to be better in your organization. But number two, most importantly, they're going to know that they don't have to hide things from you, and the organization has values of training them and making their skills stronger so that they can, even if they're not with you forever, hopefully they are if you like them, that even if they leave, the skills go with them. And we talk about this openly, like we say all these things, like I want to make them better at whatever it is they do, whether it's a client experience specialist who's a receptionist, a case manager, an attorney. I want to make them better. And if they walk out the door tomorrow with those skills, good for them. I want them to do whatever they dream about and succeed at. But I'm going to make the culture so good that they're never going to want to leave. So, I'm really passionate about that. I read about it. I try to get better at it every day. And it's just like a marketing program, Tiffany. It's like we're layering new and new things here and there into our culture to ensure that our culture continues to grow, just like our hospitality program does and our marketing program does. And I don't know. I have a joke at our quarterly state of the firm meetings that if it's a Scott Vicknair quarterly, you're going to get a whole lot of hospitality and a whole lot of culture. And so those are the two bedrock things of our organization that are just important that we focus on and we spend a lot of time and resources on. And the culture things don't have to be a lot of money. I mean, I give you our state of the quarterly state of the firms, for example, we do parties after, whether it's like going to the Top Golf or going bowling, and we have sponsors for those things. It costs the firm no money. So there's a lot of different ways you can be creative on the things that you do to strengthen the culture of the organization. And most of them don't cost money. They just cost you your most valuable resource, which is time, to be intentional and commit time to highlighting those small wins, making your team members feel safe, and then ensuring that they understand that culture is a priority of the organization.
So, one of the things kind of selfishly I liked about working for you is I very rarely heard marketing ideas or interference from the legal team. And I don't get that as much as I used to, but some days it'll be like, well, shouldn't we change it to be this? And I'd be
I
like,
kept it from you.
yeah,
That's why.
probably kept it from me. Yeah. Talk a little bit about why you do that. I mean, you do silo marketing a little bit. So, what's your take on that?
Well, my take on that is that lawyers think they're good at everything because we're not good at controlling our egos. But in my experience now over the last 4 years in growing the firm, I've kind of come to realize, and my lawyers laugh about it and giggle with me now, they've learned too, that we are so bad at intake. Like you think you're good at intake because you're a lawyer, and I couldn't find somebody who's worse at intake in our organization than our lawyers. Number one, let's start there. That's a whole separate thing. But we also think, oh, we're good at marketing. We have great marketing minds. Not really. And so I want them to be able to feel comfortable to give ideas and to give input. And there are many different forums in our regular workflows and in the firm that they can. But they know, at least now, after many years of growing and kind of ingraining our systems and structure into them, that if they do have an idea, like really the right place to go to it is me. Because as the managing attorney and somebody will eventually be the managing partner when I'm not anymore, but that seat, that role in the organizational chart is really who they should be relaying some of that stuff to because it just causes communication issues and organizational problems if they're going laterally to the marketing coordinator or the marketing director saying, "Hey, I want to do this." And it's like, okay, stay in your lane. We want you to be what you're best at, which is being a lawyer. And that's no different from our intake team members. We want them to focus on the things that they're really good at, which is intake. And we want them to get better at that. Now, I don't want any of them to not feel ownership and give ideas. And they do. In fact, like our intake team members and our case managers come up with different companies that we go and highlight in our new Small Biz Big Win segment. They come up with great ideas. We get great ideas, but it doesn't come now in a way that it interferes with the marketing team's ability to execute.
So one short story, one thing that happened to me recently is one of the attorneys at a firm I'm working with said, "Oh, when the website loads, the number changes. Could we ask the SEO team to stop that?" And they communicated that to an assistant who then messaged the SEO team and asked them to change it to a number that stayed the same. And that's the point. I saw the email and I was intervening and I was like, no, 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 you want that. That's a dynamic tracking number that's working as it should.
Yeah.
And, it's one, the attorney should have kind of communicated that through a better channel, I guess. Two, as marketers, or maybe what, the law firm teams don't understand is when an attorney tells you to do something and you're a little bit inexperienced, this is your first marketing job or your second or your third, you just tend to do it. And sometimes it's not always like the best idea. And so, yeah, I really do have to control the flow of the task and the marketing ideas and how they get implemented because there's uncertainty on all sides, I guess.
I do think there's something to like my big theory on leadership is that the best leadership is humble leadership. And humble leadership requires, in my opinion, a recognition that each of us have an ego and that each of us can acknowledge that and work on our own individual emotional intelligence and managing our egos on a day-to-day basis. And so I've openly talked about that a lot with my team over the last 2 or 3 years. We have a bookshelf in the hall when you come in the firm. And so I keep like 4 or 5 copies of each of my favorite books up there for business management, for personal development that anybody can take and read and that type of stuff. And one of my favorite books that's up there is my friend Zach Pritchard got back on me about a year or two ago to reread this book, No Ego by Cy Wakeman. And so I talk about that book a lot from the standpoint of like everybody needs to recognize they have their own egos, put their own egos in check. And so for me, I have a leadership team. It's me and my COO, Brad Youngblood, and my marketing director, Whitney Cadwell. And all three of us are big, humble leadership type people. We're not flaunting our titles. We view our role as serving everybody in the organization and that we work with them. They don't work for us. I strongly believe that to my core. And so when you're living that way on a day-to-day basis in the firm, in the professional interactions with your team, then they start to also understand how important their own ego management is, how important it is to hold themselves accountable, and that behavior becomes modulated throughout the organization if leadership leads with it. And so I think we get the benefit, Tiff, is my theory, of us having that control certain ego outbursts, like a lawyer thinking he or she should be directing the dynamic call reel tracking number on the website, or the lawyer thinking they're the best person to try to sign that new case rather than one of the non-lawyer new client intake team members. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So, I guess to wrap up the podcast and just to get a little bit more information about you and advice I can give to other attorneys. So, when you're thinking about marketing budget, right? When you're thinking about how much should I spend and how much should I put it, like honestly, you were one of the law firms I worked with that was more aggressive about the budget and increasing it to get this certain CPA. Like, how would you advise lawyers who are like afraid of making that big leap into a certain media?
Well, I think you should be strategic about it. I think that you have to have your own financial house in order, because if you're going to allocate a ton of the firm's available capital to a marketing budget, you have to know that the industry standard, right, is that you should probably be spending about 20% of your revenue on marketing. Okay. And a lot of firms aren't doing that. A lot. A lot are spending less because they want to be more profitable. They don't want to allocate it to marketing. My perspective on that is I can't get where I want my team to get and my firm to get with the resources that I need if I don't grow revenue exponentially. And to grow revenue exponentially, you need to aggressively spend on marketing, but you can't, in my opinion, financially make that decision in a smart way if your own personal financial house is not in order and you're not financially secure because you're the owner and you're the bank and you're the shareholder who the organization needs to raise money from if cash flow gets tight. So I would say getting your own financial house in order, investing, saving, and doing smart things to make yourself somewhat financially secure before you start talking about like I'm going to spend $1 million or $1.5 million annually on marketing, which is a lot of resources and money. You need to be in a good place before you can take the jump. Now, some people may say that's horse crap and say, I'm willing to take the risk, whatever. Okay, well, then you may put yourself in a position which I wouldn't want to be in to financially leverage yourself to need to take loans and put debt upon the firm to kind of make all the math work. So, you got to start somewhere. You got to start allocating some of your budget to marketing and start acting and start doing things, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. What does work, put a little bit more resource to that. And like you just start somewhere. I mean, Tiffany, I think, I don't think we were spending, more than 100 or $200,000 on marketing 4 or 5 years ago. And now we're probably spending almost 2 million. So it's like that happened quickly, but it all happened intentionally. It all happened with purpose, and it all went into channels that we were able to know were working. And there were some mistakes along the way. There was some money lost and wasted along the way. I viewed a lot of that not as waste, more like investments in my own education on the things that work and don't work to make me more efficient and focused on the things that do and how to allocate resources to the things that the organization needs to spend money on to be successful. So start somewhere, act. If you don't want to allocate 20% of your budget to marketing, that's okay. Like maybe allocate 5, maybe allocate 10% and start trying different things and seeing what works and doesn't work for you and your market, for your firm. And you can always build upon that. You can always expand upon that, or you can't. It's up to you because ultimately, I'm a big believer in what our friend Ben Glass teaches and talks about is like, not everybody needs to grow to be a 100-person firm. Not everybody needs to grow to be a 50-person firm. The goal is what does the owner want and what did they want to get the firm to? And then the marketing budget follows that why.
Well, David, thank you so much for being on our show today. Could you tell everyone how you want people to look you up and learn more about you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope this wasn't too boring. I feel like I ran it for 45 minutes. Anybody can find me on LinkedIn. I write twice a week on LinkedIn. It's David Vicknair and Scott Vicknair and Dolores. The firm shares all my LinkedIn posts. We're on every social media channel. It's scottvicknair.com. And our phone number is 504-500-1111. And if you're bored and want to play an app, we have a new app. It's Scott Vicknair Lane Leapfrogger. You can download and play our app. And we also have an amazing podcast that I'm very proud of. We're coming up on our 100th episode. That's the Overruled podcast with Scott Vicknair Law Firm. It is on all the mediums, Apple, Spotify, every podcast channel. We also have a really active YouTube page where all of our podcast videos are, all of our commercials are. So you can pretty much find us anywhere.
Well, thanks so much again, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Tiff.